Think about the amount of energy it takes to convince the world you are fine when you aren't. It is an invisible, exhausting full-time job. Society actively rewards us for hiding our emotional pain. We receive high praise when we sacrifice our own basic needs to serve everyone else, and we are celebrated for building emotional walls so high that we never require anyone's help. This extreme selflessness creates the caregiver archetype. This is a person experiencing smiling depression, smiling brightly through the day while slowly hollowing out inside. They endlessly tend to the needs of friends, family, and partners, generating a constant hum of utility to drown out their own internal void. In stark contrast, there is the author. Instead of pleasing people, they preemptively push them away. They use sharp words, fierce independence, and an antisocial exterior as an offensive strike. The logic is simple. If they reject everyone first, they can never be abandoned. Both the caregiver and the author are highly successful at one specific thing: survival. But keeping these defense mechanisms firmly in place guarantees you never actually get to live. So, which mask is currently keeping you hidden? When a pathological overgiver collides with a walled-off cynic, the initial impact is highly volatile. Their coping mechanisms are perfectly engineered to trigger each other's deepest insecurities. The caregiver suffocates the author with unwanted help, while the author starves the caregiver of the validation they desperately need to feel worthy. But if they manage to stay in the room, the friction changes. Their opposing extremes stop acting as weapons and begin acting as a psychological mirror, exposing exactly what the other person has spent years avoiding. This diagram illustrates what happens when the caregiver tries to overextend. The author's intense, uncompromising boundaries act as a brick wall. The author simply refuses to take the help. For the first time, the caregiver is forced to sit quietly with their own severe burnout, and they finally give themselves permission to feel angry about it. True emotional healing rarely looks like a cinematic romantic gesture. It looks like the uncomfortable, forceful exposure of our most guarded blind spots by someone who refuses to let us hide. In return, the caregiver offers something the author has rarely experienced: an unwavering, patient presence. When the author attempts to sabotage the relationship or provoke an argument to prove they are inherently unlovable, the caregiver simply doesn't leave. This triggers a clinical process known as co-regulation. As you can see here, two damaged nervous systems can actually learn to calm each other and align their frequencies entirely through physical and emotional proximity. But for co-regulation to hold, both people have to abandon the urge to fix the other's trauma. They are not trying to erase the past. They are anchoring each other in the present reality. This is the emotional practice of sitting in the dark. Instead of offering unsolicited advice or toxic positivity, you sit next to your partner in their pain. You let them feel the weight of it without rushing them to an exit. Unconditional safety is achieved the exact moment you realize your absolute worst traits are out in the open and the other person is still sitting right next to you. When that safety is established, the caregiver undergoes a quiet transformation. They realize that their worth as a human being is entirely decoupled from their utility to others. They are allowed to exist simply for themselves. Simultaneously, the author realizes that their psychological scars do not render them defective. The heavy armor can finally come down because the constant threat of abandonment is gone. As this image perfectly captures, love between damaged people does not magically cure trauma. Instead, it creates an environment where it is finally safe to be flawed. The broken pieces are repaired together. Deep, enduring connection happens when we find the courage to drop the exact defense mechanisms that kept us alive when we were alone. If you were watching this, you might be telling yourself a very specific story about your own readiness for a real relationship. There is a modern myth circling around that dictates we must be completely healed, entirely whole, and perfectly put together before we are worthy of finding love. That is false. Your brokenness and your vulnerabilities are not disqualifiers. They are the exact traits that make you capable of profound, empathetic love. You know what it means to hurt, which means you know exactly how to hold someone else when they do. It is entirely okay to not be okay. If you found some clarity in this breakdown, hit the like button so this can reach someone else who might need to hear it today. And subscribe to the channel for more explorations into the psychology of human connection.